The Holocaust, a word that echoes through history, a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for evil. 6 million Jewish lives extinguished, families torn apart, futures stolen, dreams turned to ash. The Nazis, driven by a venomous ideology, sought to eradicate an entire people. Their weapon? Hate. Their method? Systematic murder. The Holocaust was not a sudden eruption of violence. It was the culmination of years of poisonous propaganda, discrimination, and escalating brutality. From the whispers of prejudice to the deafening roar of genocide, the world watched and often turned away. We remember this dark chapter not to dwell in despair, but to learn from it, to vow never again, to fight against intolerance and hatred in all its forms. The Holocaust is a stark reminder that silence is not neutral, it is complicity. We must speak out against injustice, confront prejudice, and challenge discrimination wherever we see it. We owe it to the victims, to ourselves, and to future generations to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. We must never forget. Germany, the 1920s. A nation wounded, humiliated by defeat in World War I. Economic turmoil gripped the land, and political instability reigned. It was a fertile breeding ground for extremism, for easy answers to complex problems. Into this void stepped Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party, peddling a toxic ideology of hatred and nationalism. Hitler, a charismatic orator, tapped into the simmering resentment of the German people. He offered a scapegoat, the Jews. He blamed them for Germany's economic woes, for its defeat in the war, for all of society's ills. His words resonated with frightening power, particularly among those desperate for someone to blame for their suffering. The Nazi Party, once a fringe group, rose to prominence through a combination of propaganda, intimidation, and political maneuvering. They preyed on fear and uncertainty, exploiting existing prejudices to turn neighbor against neighbor. Step by step, they tightened their grip on German society, transforming it into a totalitarian state where dissent was silenced and opposition crushed. With each passing year, the noose of Nazi control tightened around Germany's Jewish population. What began with hateful whispers escalated into systematic discrimination. Laws were enacted stripping Jews of their citizenship, their businesses, their livelihoods. They were banned from public spaces, their movements restricted, their lives constricted. The yellow star, a symbol of supposed shame, became a badge of terror, marking Jews as targets for harassment and violence. Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, shattered the illusion of safety. Synagogues burned, Jewish businesses were looted and destroyed, and thousands were rounded up and sent to concentration camps. The world watched, horrified, but largely inactive. The Nazis, masters of propaganda, dehumanized the Jews, portraying them as vermin, as parasites, as a threat to the purity of the German race. This relentless campaign of hate, spread through newspapers, radio, and film, poisoned the minds of millions, paving the way for even greater horrors to come. Section 4. The Final Solution, a Plan of Unthinkable Cruelty. As World War II raged across Europe, the Nazi regime embarked on a campaign of extermination with chilling efficiency. The final solution, as it was chillingly termed, was a plan to systematically murder all of Europe's Jews. It was genocide on an industrial scale, a testament to the depths of human depravity. Death camps, with names like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor, became factories of death. Jews, along with Roma, homosexuals, political prisoners, and others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime, were transported in cattle cars, packed together like animals. Many died on the journey, succumbing to starvation, disease, or suffocation. Those who survived the journey were stripped of their possessions, their dignity, their very identities. They were tattooed with numbers, their heads shaved, their bodies clad in rags. They were subjected to forced labor, starvation, disease, and unimaginable cruelty. Many were murdered upon arrival, gassed in chambers disguised as showers. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the horrors unfolding within the camp's barbed wire fences. Life in the camps was a daily struggle for survival. Prisoners were forced to perform grueling labor under the harshest conditions. Food was scarce, and what little there was barely edible. Disease ran rampant, and medical care was virtually non-existent. The SS guards were brutal, often beating or killing prisoners for the slightest infraction. Families were torn apart, with men, women, and children separated upon arrival. Hope was a rare commodity, But even in the darkest of times, there were moments of humanity. Prisoners formed bonds, shared what little they had, and tried to maintain their dignity in the face of overwhelming cruelty. Yet, for many, the camps were a place of death. The gas chambers and crematoria worked day and night, and mass graves became the final resting place for countless souls. The sheer scale of the suffering is almost beyond comprehension. Amidst the horror, there were acts of resistance and bravery. Some prisoners organized uprisings, like the revolt at Sobibor, where hundreds managed to escape. Others engaged in acts of sabotage, disrupting the Nazi war machine from within. Outside the camps, brave individuals and groups risked their lives to save others. The Danish resistance famously ferried nearly all of Denmark's Jewish population to safety in Sweden. In France, the village of Le Chambon-sur-Lignon sheltered thousands of Jews, defying the Nazi occupiers. The efforts of these brave souls remind us that even in the darkest times, there is light. The Allied forces, upon discovering the camps, were horrified by what they found. They liberated the survivors, providing medical care, food, and the promise of freedom. The world would soon learn of the full extent of the Holocaust's atrocities. Today, we remember the victims of the Holocaust and honor the survivors. The stories of those who endured the unimaginable serve as a powerful reminder of the consequences of hatred and intolerance. Memorials and museums around the world ensure that the lessons of the Holocaust are not forgotten. Education plays a crucial role in preventing such atrocities from happening again. By learning about the past, we can work towards a future where such horrors are never repeated. It is our collective responsibility to stand against hatred in all its forms and to promote a world of understanding, compassion, and peace. The memory of the Holocaust urges us to be vigilant, to speak out against injustice, and to ensure that the phrase "never again" is not just a slogan, but a reality.